Imagine this. It's the middle of the Cold War. The US and the Soviet Union are locked in a deadly staring contest, each side armed with thousands of nuclear weapons, each convinced the other might strike first. The planet is a powder keg, and the fuse could be lit by a single radar blip or a panicked decision. Now picture one man in a dark Soviet bunker. His screens flash red. Nuclear missiles inbound from the United States. His orders? Report. The attack. Within minutes, Moscow would retaliate with everything it had, and humanity would be reduced to ash and silence. But that night, a single officer named Stanislav Petrov didn't obey the machine. He trusted his gut. And by refusing to press the button, he may have saved billions of lives. This is the night the world almost ended. The Cold War powder keg too. Understand how close we came to nuclear war that September night in 1983. You need to feel the paranoia of the times. The Cold War wasn't just politics. It was a 40-year nightmare of suspicion, espionage, and military brinkmanship. Both the United States and the Soviet Union had enough nuclear weapons to destroy the planet several times over. Both sides kept their arsenals on hair-trigger alert, ready to launch within minutes if they believed the other side had fired first. In December 1983, the tension was worse than ever. US President Ronald Reagan had branded the Soviet Union the evil empire. NATO was planning Able Archer 83, a massive military exercise that the Soviets feared was actually a cover for a surprise nuclear strike. Just weeks earlier, a Soviet jet had shot down Korean Airlines Flight 07, a passenger plane that strayed into Soviet airspace, killing 269 people, including a US congressman. The atmosphere in Moscow was raw, jittery, and paranoid. Soviet leaders genuinely believed America might be preparing a first strike. And so they leaned heavily on their new early warning satellite system called OCO, designed to detect US missile launches the instant they happened. The fate of the world rested on blinking screens and fallible humans. The man in the bunker on. The night of September 26, 1983, a 44-year-old officer named Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov took his seat at Serpukhov 15, a secret Soviet bunker outside Moscow. Petrov wasn't a hardened general or a political zealot. He was trained as an engineer. He knew the satellite system better than most, and his superiors thought his calm, analytical personality made him perfect for the job. Still, nothing could prepare him for what was about to happen. The sirens screamed shortly. After midnight, the calm was shattered. Alarms exploded across the bunker. Sirens wailed. A massive red screen flashed the words every officer feared most. Missile launch detected. According to the satellite system, an American intercontinental ballistic missile was flying toward the Soviet Union. Protocol was brutally simple. Petrov had to report the detection to his superiors. Moscow's generals, believing the United States had attacked, would unleash a counterstrike of hundreds of missiles. The United States would then retaliate. Within 30 minutes, the world would be gone. Petrov's chest tightened. He had minutes to decide. Then the system escalated. Not one missile, not two. 5 US missiles were detected, all inbound. The room erupted in chaos. Phones rang. Officers shouted. The massive screen glowed red, screaming apocalypse. The burden of a lifetime Petrov was frozen between two impossible choices. If he reported the launches as real, and they were false, the Soviet counterattack would destroy the United States, trigger a global nuclear war, and wipe out humanity, all because of a mistake. But if he dismissed them as false and the missiles were real, he would have doomed his country. The Soviet Union would be annihilated without striking back. He'd be branded a traitor. Everything. Billions of lives, the future of civilization, balanced on the shoulders of one man. Trusting his gut, Petrov took a breath. Something didn't add up. Why only 5 missiles? A real American first strike would involve hundreds, maybe thousands. Launching just 5 was suicidal. It would invite total Soviet retaliation. He also remembered something critical: the OKO satellite system was new and untested. He himself had been briefed on its flaws. He knew it was vulnerable to false alarms, and then beyond the data and protocols was his gut, his human instinct. He later said, "I had a funny feeling in my gut. I didn't want to be the one responsible for starting World War III." Petrov made the most important decision of the 20th century. He picked up the phone and told his superiors, "It is a false alarm." Waiting for the end after his report, there was nothing to do but wait. Minutes passed. Each one felt like an eternity. Every man in the bunker knew that if Petrov was wrong, US warheads would soon vaporize Moscow. But the missiles never came. The attack was an illusion. Later analysis revealed the satellites had misread sunlight reflecting off high altitude clouds as missile launches. The machine had cried wolf. Petrov's defiance had stopped humanity from pulling the trigger on itself. The price of saving the world. You might think such a man would be celebrated as a hero, but in the Soviet Union, Petrov's decision embarrassed the military. The system had failed. Admitting it could undermine confidence in their entire nuclear defense. Instead of medals, Petrov received reprimands. He was criticized for not filling out his paperwork correctly. His career stalled. Eventually, he retired early, living in a modest apartment outside Moscow. For years, the incident was classified. No one outside a small circle of Soviet officials even knew how close the world had come to annihilation. Petrov lived quietly, caring for his sick wife, growing vegetables and fading into obscurity. Only after the Soviet Union collapsed did his story emerge. By then, he was a forgotten man in his own country. Recognition at last, when Petrov's role became known in the West in the 1990s, he was finally honored. He received the World Citizen Award, the Dresden Peace Prize, and recognition from the United Nations. He was even flown to New York to be celebrated at the United Nations headquarters. But Petrov himself resisted the title of hero. He told interviewers, "I was just doing my job. I was the right person in the right place at the right time, that's all." Still, historians argue that his judgment that night was one of the single greatest acts of restraint in human history. Billions of people, everyone alive today, owe their lives to his refusal to follow the machine. Lessons for today. The story of Stanislav Petrov is not just history. It's a warning that still matters. Today, both Russia and the United States keep thousands of nuclear weapons ready to fire in minutes. Early warning systems remain imperfect, computers can still glitch, satellites can still misread signals, and ultimately the decision still rests with human beings. Humans who may be tired, stressed, or paranoid. Humans who may not have the calm judgment Petrov showed on that September night. It reminds us how fragile our existence is. The world didn't survive that night because of technology, or governments, or treaties. It survived because one officer in a bunker trusted his humanity over his orders. Think about it. Every single one of us alive today owes our existence to Stanislav Petrov's choice. One yes, and we would not be here. The world almost ended in 1983. It didn't, because one man kept his cool, followed his gut, and refused to let paranoia destroy the planet. So the next time someone says one person can't change the world, remember Stanislav Petrov, the man who may have saved it. Stanislav Petrov proved that one person can save the world. His courage stopped a nuclear war, and his story must never be forgotten. If this tale shook you, hit like, drop a comment with your thoughts, and share it so more people learn how close we came to the end. Don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories that changed history.